Okay, hello. Welcome to this webinar. This specifically is on the three massive challenges entrepreneurs have that stop them in their tracks and how to turn them into opportunity. I'm Greg Glander, author and life coach and business development consultant, and I'll be your host for this webinar. And let me tell you, I am so excited that you're here with me for this class because I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. So I trust you're ready for what will be an extremely informative hour to say hour and a half. I'm going to try to keep it within that time frame. So hopefully you'll have some fun. You'll be gaining some insights about yourself, as well as how successful people think and operate versus how most others operate in life. And you'll be discovering a lot of distinctions that make the difference. Now, also, make sure you're really tuned in here so you can get some real world knowledge and methods that you can take and actually use, that is certain to propel you exponentially in your personal as well as professional journeys. And just a little FYI here, I might go a bit more quickly in some parts than others because I have a lot to cover and I usually have a lot to say. I sometimes get so caught up in these subjects because I just absolutely love them. They've given me the answers I wanted when I was younger. They helped me make the changes that I needed. And I just love talking about them and teaching and coaching that I kind of have to watch myself and rein myself in at times. But, I also want to respect your time. Okay, so let's have some fun. Let's discover a lot. And let's get ready to make some real, positive, and tangible changes and learn some ways to make real strides in our efforts. Okay? Now, I will take you from frustration to freedom. And when I say freedom, I mean freedom from the limiting thoughts, uncertainty, which, by the way, is the foundation of inaction, and from overwhelm and lack of effective productivity strategies. Now, this is normally called not making strides towards your goal, right? Now, this won't be like a lot of webinars where you may get information, but then as soon as you leave, you still really have nothing much to work with or haven't gotten any real methods to make change with. So my goal here is to give you some real insight into real-world transformational experience, to provide knowledge, real methods, and lessons so you can take real action and actually achieve your desired outcomes, whatever they may be. And just a bit of housekeeping here real quick. It's super important that you are in the present and free of any distractions. So put away the phone, turn off the TV, and get a pen and paper because you're going to want to take some notes. I mean, if you're distracted at all, you're not going to get what you need from this webinar, and I know your time is very valuable, and you want to get the most out of this. Now, while I'll begin here with, exactly who this webinar or class is for, and I'll also give you a bit of my personal story as well so you can get to know a little bit of who I am, you'll still want to pay close attention throughout that because there just might be some real distinctions and points of value even within that right from the start. So before we get any further with things here, let me say just who this webinar is for so you'll know you're in the right place. While we primarily are addressing the entrepreneur, or the small business startup owner, let me say, this is for you if you fall into one of two categories. One being for individuals who are struggling in their personal life with these three challenges, which cover limiting beliefs, limiting habits, and inner challenges that keep you from taking some action that you need to take. And again, this could be fears, anxiety, procrastination, that's a huge one, right? Overwhelm. You're struggling to get 1,001 things you have on your plate done, maybe at home or projects at your job. You always feel like you're not getting ahead or always feeling swamped. It's just not enough hours in the day, right? Don't worry, you're good to go here. The second category is if you happen to be an entrepreneur who may be struggling with their inner game, such as I just listed. If you're a small business owner, the online marketer, maybe you're in sales at your company, maybe you're in the midst of getting some needed certifications for a specific skill or profession you want to get into, you're in the right place. Also, no matter which category you're currently in, if you're struggling with a crucial aspect of your outer game called productivity, you're in the right place. And we've all battled this one, right? So again, this is particularly for you as well, whether in business or personally. Now, if you're not an entrepreneur or small business owner yet, that's completely okay because, again, what you'll discover and engage on this webinar or class is just as vital to success in your personal life as it is in business. Now, let me quickly point something out. I've seen a lot of people who are either starting a venture or maybe already have their business going or whatever. And many times, they don't even acknowledge they're struggling with their inner game. It's the dominant Western way of operating in life from the outside in versus the inside out. We've been taught to believe that everything has to be a struggle or that everything is solely about physical work and an ego-based way of doing things. However, that's also how our noisy, logical, fear-based, and lack and limitation-based conscious mind screws with us as well. Now, I can't stress enough the importance of you winning at your inner game. All right, let me say this. From a neural, scientific, biophysical, and even as deep as a spiritual point of view, and I didn't say religious, I said spiritual, your inner game is the most important game to win. Certainly so much more than your outer game. But why? Well, it's because the brain, and by extension the mind, which is the brain in action, gives the instructions and directs your thoughts, your actions, and the course you chart for yourself, not the other way around. In other words, life doesn't just happen to you. So my overall point with all this is, please don't overlook or take your habitual thoughts and beliefs and limiting habits lightly. Don't take the key role of the mind and beliefs and this whole inner game stuff lightly. The average person in Western society and culture who does take this stuff lightly is really doing themselves an enormous disservice. And I can't emphasize that enough. So as we go through this webinar, some of what you'll discover is that contrary to what you were taught in school and by social programming, in order to succeed and achieve your goals, your desires, the life experiences you want, you must start thinking and operating in the opposite manner than what you're used to. That's a big part of what my clients learn to do in my coaching. They get out of their own way, so to speak, and become who they need to be in order to do what they need to do. And that's imperative. In fact, let's do this. Right now, make an intention that you really are going to start on a path of untangling your habitual way of thought and being within the realm of social programming. You're going to start creating new habits of thoughts, beliefs, insights, and the manner in which you will approach your life from here on out. Now, I know it's not an immediate thing, but starting right this moment in time, commit to learning and changing your view of yourself and how you operate. Yes, it is a conscious act, and it takes attention and intention. And again, we'll discover some key distinctions and lessons in which to do that. But a little concerted effort in the beginning, will change how you operate. And down the road, you will see yourself growing and tearing down obstacles so much easier and getting so much farther ahead to achieving your financial and personal goals or your ultimate outcomes. So the three massive challenges I'm about to share are what keep people from getting out of their own way and taking needed action. All right? And they are fear of failure. And we're going to think of that as conspiracies of the past or future. The second one would be uncertainty. And we're going to think of that as clouded mind. Now, the third one is lack of effective productivity methods. And we're going to call that the fog of overwhelm. Now, these three areas combined present a big problem for most. But here's the deal. If you start switching your mindset, starting right here and right now, right, to a new direction, this can also turn into your opportunity, personally, financially, or professionally. Now, I think actually now might be a good time for me to impart to you something extremely valuable, even before we get into the three challenges. All right, and it's this. You see, one particular attribute that successful people have trained themselves in is switching from problem to a solution-based way of thinking. It's become habit for them. And actually, they could be successful in any or all of the major pillars of life, be it in health, wealth, happiness, or relationships. Now, what exactly does that mean? It means they seek solutions, knowledge, education, or any means that enable them to break through, go around, or over obstacles. They also become skilled in turning problems or obstacles into, again, opportunity. And guess what? This can be you. If you commit to engaging and implementing what we'll cover here, it will be you. Your opportunity will first stem from the fact that you blast past your own limitations and obstacles so you can be who you need to be and take the action that you need to take. Okay, so right from the start here, I want you to really understand this. Here and now, a huge element in making real strides to your goals is how you can change your personal story. If you're not where you want to be, if you're not who you want or need to be at this time, something has to change, right? So I want you to imagine yourself becoming a new you. This is about you growing into an unstoppable force who can decisively take action with clarity, vision, purpose, and have a method by which you become organized and you focus on the biggest action items so that you can surge ahead and really make real strides. No more just inching along. You know you have a vision, right? You know you want to blast way beyond mediocrity. And you know you have a story to tell. And you have skills, knowledge, goods, or services that can benefit society. And I know that deep down inside, you have talents or specific attributes and qualities that you want to express, but at the same time, you have these challenges and obstacles, like most people do, that keep you from fully expressing them. And this webinar is about how to change that. But realize, please, there is a new rock star within you when you transform out of fear, the uncertainty. and you learn effective productivity strategies. You have knowledge or goods or a service that is a solution to a specific market. And because of this, you see yourself creating a life of financial independence. Some of what I'm going to teach you here stems from my Mastery Blueprint coaching. So you'll be getting some real gems and distinctions here that my clients learned that you can take with you, as well as some real transformative value. Actually, here's a takeaway you'll want to make note of right here, right off the bat. It basically addresses the crux or core of everything we're going to discuss here, and it's vitally important that you understand this up front. Oh, and if you happen to be what's called or thought of as a more externally referenced person, that's okay. But please stay with me here because it is absolutely appropriate to our discussion here and applicable more than you've been taught to believe. It is not just fluff. So, starting off with the big picture or frame, if you will, for this class or webinar, you must understand this. Your thoughts are not just some random or nebulous images in your brain. Your thoughts, beliefs, and habitual inner dialogue have so much more effect on you and your life experience than you can imagine. Actually, because it's so much of it is subconscious, you're not aware of how much they direct what you do or avoid doing. Your thoughts make up the filters of beliefs, judgments, biases, and the programming through which you experience your outer world. So let's put that into some context here, shall we? You know how you always hear that popular saying, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think that that's because of luck, good or bad luck? Do you think it's some secret game played out that's favoring those who are wealthy and victimizing those who are poor? Well, I'll admit some luck may be a piece of the puzzle at times, but I can tell you that the bottom line reason is that successful people think differently from the average person. They've got into the habit of an almost complete opposite habitual thought and belief system. They view the world, events, and themselves differently than most people. So let me give a few examples just off the top here. Here's one. The average person believes that money is earned through labor. Successful people know that money is created through thought. The average person believes in working for financial security. Successful people believe in working for purpose and fulfillment, and their financial abundance flows to them as a result. Another important distinction is most people think in terms of earned income, while successful people think in terms of building net worth. I'll add another one. Rather than worrying about income or how to bring in more money, start thinking or asking yourself how much more value is there in you to offer outwardly to a specific market. So you see, the achievers, the people who really get ahead and reach a life that they want to experience, have managed to either unravel themselves from the dominant social programming and a lack and limitation mindset, or they never got wrapped up in it in the first place. I'm one of the latter. Personally, I was never predisposed to mainstream thinking, and I credit that part of myself for why it was easier for me to get into the fields of study that I have, such as quantum science and neuroscience, NLP, human potential, success principles, and so on. And I actually learned so much and implemented a lot in my life. I simply didn't have a dominant frame of mind towards these subjects where I thought, oh, how boring, or that I rolled my eyes at them the way most people do. because I wanted answers. I went after answers and had a deep desire to transform my own personal limitations. I truly was fascinated by these fields. So, what's important for you to do is learn distinctions, and you'll learn a lot more here. You can form a new mental habit of turning negatives into positives. You can turn from being problem-oriented to becoming solutions-oriented. And it's not as hard as you're conditioned to think. By the way, as to that mainstream phrase I posed a moment ago, it's the mental distinctions, the way of thinking and operating in life, that enables the rich to get richer. And it's due to the lack of learning critical distinctions and operating the way social programming has taught them why the poor get poorer. Okay, so I'm sure you're asking, who are you and why am I listening to you? So I'll just take a brief moment here to give a bit of my story and my experience so you can get an idea of who I am and where I'm coming from. And you'll want to pay attention here because, like I mentioned a moment ago, you might just pick up on some more lessons as I go along. All right. First, I'll just say there was what I call a past Greg, and it wasn't good. I come from a background of doubt and fear and total lack of self-confidence and sense of self. And I was one who always let myself get caught in a mental downward spiral of all the hows of doing anything. So instead of enthusiastically moving ahead toward doing something, and even things that would seem pretty cool and exciting, I got caught up worrying about how I was going to do them. Self-expression and speaking out was also a huge challenge for me. I was so used to just keeping my thoughts to myself and being closed in that I didn't integrate with people, and I really missed developing my voice. I mean that physically as well as emotionally. But at the same time, I also knew I wanted answers as to why I was the way I was, as well as why people acted the way they did. How did they form their belief system, thoughts, and their behaviors? So I got into studying people like Tony Robbins and a host of others in the human potential field. And a distinction here that I had to learn was that I wasn't breaking old habits and building new habits. A person or event would happen, and I ended up reacting, or not reacting at all, the same way I always had previously. And here's something very important at work here. I could say I knew better, or I mentally had better information or principles up to a certain point. But, and this is big here, I still had the physical, fearful, and gripping feelings or sensations. You see, feelings direct our thoughts, which in turn, our thoughts are predominantly limiting, fearful, or negative, which in turn produces more negative or inhibiting feelings, which further feed our thoughts, and so on and so on. It's like one big loop. You see, we let feelings and emotions direct thoughts rather than being more proactive with our thoughts so that they produce the desired feelings. In fact, my clients in my coaching learn why this is and how to turn that around. They learn to get out of this Newtonian way of living, which is by cause and effect, and to start operating from a more quantum way, which is that they are being the cause of their desired effect. Does that make sense? But it took some years, and I eventually made real strides, and I began my journey into universal laws and quantum science. Then I got so hooked on NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, that I got my certification. And then I came across a field called neuroscience, and I dove into that. And at the same time, I was learning a lot in success and business principles. Again, I was into Tony Robbins, and I studied Robert Kiyosaki and T. Harv Eker and John Assaraf. And I followed and learned from one of the original online marketing giants, thought leader, and world speaker, Dr. Joe Vitale, as well as from online marketing and coaching genius, Adam Urbanski. And there's a host of others I could call out, but you get the idea. And I eventually went from the shy, inhibited Greg to Greg Glander, the author, and who was hand-selected as part of a very small group to spend 2 full days with, again, Dr. Joe Vitale, who was also a featured teacher, if you remember, in the movie that took the world by storm, The Secret. And I became someone who actually engages people and helps them overcome their challenges. I've worked with people across the country and in Canada, all of them who had their own small businesses that they were working on. And I helped them transform out of the fear of failure, to help them reframe events and experiences of their past that were stopping them from moving ahead. We worked to gain certainty and clarity, which to me is an absolute must, and you'll find out why coming up here. Certainty is the key to forward momentum in anything you're trying to do, and there is a certain behavioral cycle that stems from certainty. And again, we're going to talk about that coming up here. It's the second area that we'll visit and learn how to turn around. I've also worked with people needing guidance with their goods and services and with their marketing copy. Lastly, I experienced a pivotal point in my life that I was able to use as a springboard to what I now do. Not too long ago, actually late 2015, I found myself in the hospital. And to make a longer story short, they found a massive blood clot in my lungs that made me pass out one morning. I woke up on the floor and I didn't have a clue as to what just happened. Anyway, after surgery where they put in a filter and filled me with all kinds of blood thinners and whatnot, I had a couple of weeks to think about my life, where I've been, where I want to go and be doing, and who I want to be. Not only for myself, but for others, and that includes you. So I made the decision to learn and grow more and to be of more value to others. I had to find a way to have so much more impact in my coaching and teaching so that I could give my fullest value and knowledge to clients, to have a way to enable them to get even better results. I wanted them to really make strides in reaching their goals, whether in their personal life or in their business endeavors. So, in a nutshell, as a result of that, I learned to build and systemize an extensive coaching and consulting program. It's a blueprint, if you will, and it's infinitely more effective and comprehensive for the people I work with. They now have a step-by-step system to getting out of their own way, so to speak, and reaching their personal and financial goals. But like I said, I just love teaching and coaching that I could literally spend hours and hours talking with you about turning limitations into opportunities, new ways of being and how to reach your goals, how to blow past limitations and have a life you're super excited about. So just a heads up here, I want you to stay here with me to the end of the webinar because in addition to providing some real knowledge and takeaways you can use during our time here, I've got something of life-changing value for you at the end, all right? So let's jump right in now into the 3 major challenges. Number 1, again, fear of failure. Fear of failure can actually cover several things. You see, our noisy, logical, conscious mind lets these fears and memories of past people or events or of negative future events conspire to sabotage our efforts. Fear can stem from a past event where you tried something before and it didn't work, or some element of that, like a problem with a vendor, or things fell through with a client and it had a specific lasting and negative impact on you. For example, I had a client who had started a business venture the year before I met her, and her business model had to do with providing real-time social media buzz and promotion for business owners while they were at conventions or doing their own live events. And focus in here and see if there are any takeaways you just may want to make note of here, right? Among various limitations that resulted in her first couple of go-arounds, she really had some anxiety and, in her words, a fear of failure when thinking about giving it another shot. But she wanted to give it another try. I mean, she really had this entrepreneurial streak in her, and she knew she wanted to reach financial independence for herself. So after asking her some specific questions and getting to the core of things, she came to realize that one of the nagging doubts and causes of her fear and anxiety was that she felt she failed in making clear enough what exactly her role would be or what all her services would be to her clients. You know, those first customers were generally okay with things when the event or contract was all said and done, but they weren't exactly thrilled either, and they weren't shy about making that known. Consequently, that didn't make her feel real good. In fact, that really affected her, and it really made her lose confidence. So while she was stuck in neutral, I wanted to get her going again in fifth gear, and I knew that that was possible. So what happened? What did we do? I ultimately got her to turn those memories around and to reframe the meanings her subconscious mind were giving those memories. I'll repeat that. To reframe the meanings her subconscious mind were giving those memories. Meaning, I asked her specific questions about how she worked with those past clients, and we looked into detailed memories of what was triggering her anxiety and that fear of failure. So when taking this journey back into the past, only this time armed with the right questions and techniques, she was able to break free of the conspiracies holding her back and get her subconscious mind to see distinctions and to discover those hidden gems as to how she was going to do things better and more effectively the next time around. And we worked so she could get crystal clear with the tools she needed to do business and what her business model was and exactly what her service was going to be. We also established how she was going to communicate her services, her value, and how her prospective clients would benefit from hiring her. She saw new interpretations and information about the past so she could discover what she was going to do to be bigger and better this time as she moved full speed ahead. Okay, so getting back to the overall picture here, she turned things around to change her, what? Her story, right? She turned the limitations that kept her from moving forth into a new opportunity. In fact, just a couple weeks after our final session together, she emailed me to say she finally came up with the money for a new iPad for business, where before she swore she had no idea how she'd find it. And she also just happened to secure a new client. So the results for her was that she blew past the uncertainty, anxiety, and the buildup of fear of failure. She gained certainty about what she was doing with her business model, and she no longer feared engaging with potential clients because she was prepared with communicating her value and her service, and she was willing to take the action, and she actually successfully secured a new gig. Also, I took her through visualization techniques to cut directly through to the subconscious mind, and we worked together to take those memories and visions of the past and get it so that they no longer had that gripping sensation of fear and anger on her. So she was free to move ahead with certainty and clarity without the emotional grip. one in particular is an extremely powerful visualization called Circle of Excellence. What happens is when you utilize this method or this empowering mind movie, if you will, you move into a peak state so you can perform at your highest level. And it's one of my favorites, not only because it's extremely effective, but it's also portable, meaning you can employ it anywhere and anytime. It's perfect for an athlete before game time. It's excellent for speakers and entertainers. And you could even use it before having to give a presentation at your job. You could use it before taking some exam. Again, anywhere, anytime. Now, this brings me to what I mentioned a moment ago, and this is important. Remember, I mentioned the fact that we are run by emotions? Emotions versus logic, that is. Well, there are ways in which we take the fear, anger, or anxiety out of the equation. Now, I'm not saying that people's memories are somehow erased or anything. We'll still think of people or past events, right? But now, it's without being in the grip of the immobilizing emotions or negative feelings that stop us from moving ahead. It's important to remember the fact that the mind is connected to and throughout the body in so many ways. It is a scientific, neurological, biophysical fact that the mind is at one with the body. Now, I won't take time here with the science of it all and bore you to death, even though I love it. It's absolutely fascinating to me how the mind and body mesh together and create this one integrated system. But in my work, I don't advocate just positive thinking. You see, one can think positively about some future event, but then what do you think happens? I mean, you can come up again to an event or someone that you thought positively about, and guess what? You'll ultimately have the same fear or gripping feelings or emotions as the last time. Why? Because the body didn't get the neurological, genetic, and chemical instruction down to the nervous system. That's why just thinking positively, it doesn't go nearly far enough. Okay, so we just covered a bit on fears that your mind plays on you. We've discovered the ways those mental and emotional conspiracies can take form and how they can stop you. And some ways in which you can take those past experiences or fears, learn from them, and discover more empowering lessons and meanings. Then turn them into newfound opportunity. Let's now move on to the second challenge or obstacle, which is uncertainty. And we'll simply call this clouded mind. So, throughout my studies and working with people, it hasn't taken much to see that most people have trouble with follow-through. And it's that even when they know what they need to do, they procrastinate, right? They put it off. They don't move on it, or they hesitate. Now, some people can say, well, I'll have to do it tomorrow. I'll have to get to it later today or next week. But overall, I've found that whatever those reasons are, they ultimately become what? Excuses. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but they become an ingrained habit of inner dialogue. For a lot of people, those things that really are ultimately excuses, they become their identity. So why is that? Why do people put off that sales call or put off starting a course that they bought or some real impactful action towards a goal they intended? It could be, making use of that new gym membership or something beyond their norm or comfort zone. There are a variety of mental or emotional factors, but they all come down to a particular ingredient. Again, certainty. Now, certainty is key. That alone can be a real impetus to taking action and actually having that necessary follow through. You see, when you have complete certainty that no matter what, you're going to achieve what you want, you just know without a doubt that you can or you must accomplish something, you can actually see the outcome. It's like nothing seems to be in your way. I'm going to put it this way, and follow along here. Here we go. You have full faith and belief in yourself and the outcome, so you engage in your fullest potential and capability, and you actually see yourself getting what? Results. It's like you're in fifth gear and tearing it up. Now, if you really paid attention just then, you might have picked up on a particular cycle. It's actually a behavioral cycle, and I'll explain more on that in a minute. I remember not too many years ago, I was a complete gym rat, and I had an intention to develop a certain physique. So the result I was after with working out and everything wasn't some vague or nebulous idea, such as lose some weight. I had a vision, I had drive to drastically cut down my body fat and to build substantial muscle and really create a physique that I always wanted. So I set out to study what the pro bodybuilders do. I watched their videos, I read their articles in the industry mags, and I immersed myself in the nutrition game. I came to understand that what and when you eat is about 80% of the game. 80%! So learning that really helps maximize your efforts, by the way, not only when it comes to body fat, but to maximize your performance in the gym as well. My first year, I was really overweight. And just to give you a kind of a picture here, I'm only 5 feet even. So you can imagine what I look like being that short and that I had, more body fat than I had up in my life up to that point. And I know it was all my own fault, of course, and I was aware that I had let myself go. So I definitely had some work cut out for me, right? But here's the thing. Never before had I put myself in such an undertaking as this. But I gave myself a reasonable timeline to see and feel real results. I was armed with knowledge, and I was continually learning along the way. I took it as my craft. So I had a plan, and I had intention. It was to a point that in spite of sacrifices I was about to make in terms of downtime or the junky foods and whatnot, I just didn't even conceive of failing. It was going to happen one way or another, whatever it took. And let me point something out. Remember, back in those years, I was in my other journey of getting myself together personally, like I talked about earlier. I wasn't outgoing, wasn't comfortable in my own skin, and really self-conscious of how short I am. So here I was about to go to all the fitness clubs and actual gyms, filled with big, tall men and women who just looked outstanding and just tearing it up. And then there was me, right? My point is, even with who I was at the time, it would have been so easy to not even start due to fear of going to the gyms with all the people or lack of belief either in myself or in the process, or letting the sacrifices stop me from even getting in the game. What propelled me to not only start, but to enter the game with full intent and in fifth gear was that there was certainty. There was clarity in my mission, and more importantly, in the outcome. And I'm going to talk about outcome versus process shortly. But every day and night, I saw in my mind my desired physique. At that point, I was learning the importance of having the end goal or outcome clearly in my mind's eye. I was giving my body the instruction of what I wanted it to be through imagery, emotion, and an energetic resonance of how it feels to be at, 6, 7, 8% body fat and having a well-defined build. I mean, how great it would feel to have lasting energy throughout the day and evening without feeling tired all the time and needing short naps all the time. How much more mentally and physically empowered I would be after pushing my mind and body to their limits in the gym. So here's a question for you. Remember what I talked about before with reaching down to the nervous system in the body? Now, from the illustration I just gave, was I doing that? Do you think that to get the results that I did, that I was implementing a mind and body connection? You absolutely bet I was. I was using my mind to connect down to the body to give the instruction and to have this incredible integrated system that we all have to help me with the heavy lifting, no pun intended. And I did this every day, every night, during the day, you name it. So it's about repetition. It's about establishing a little ritual. Now, make note of that. Let me say it again. You can gain certainty by establishing a daily ritual for the mind and body. I'm going to go a bit more into that in just a moment, so stay with me here. Now, let me explain that cycle, if you will, that I mentioned earlier. And it is a continuing cycle that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, good or bad. And for me, it's one of the best illustrations that really shows a behavior pattern that we can either use to let ourselves become a victim of our own limiting paradigm or use to our advantage. Now, before I get into this, this is not my original stuff. I came across this years ago, and I just thought it was brilliant. This actually is from Tony Robbins, and he was showing marketing giants Frank Kern and John Reese this loosely scribbled picture he doodled on a pad of paper. But it's so elegant in its simplicity, yet it covers so much of the human mental and emotional paradigm, and all in just 4 little boxes. So this goes to this second huge challenge here of uncertainty. And I remember Tony loosely saying, essentially, this is like the holy grail as to why people take action and have follow-through or why they don't. What he saw over and over and over again with working with millions of people around the world is that certainty is the bottom line ingredient to you taking action and having follow-through. So imagine these 4 elements. Number 1 is potential. Now, we all have infinite potential as human beings. We all have infinite capability. I think we can agree to that. It's a matter, though, of how much we allow ourselves to tap into that potential. How much belief you have in your potential, or how entrenched you are in the learned and limiting social programming, is what determines how much or how little you tap into your own potential. Now, whether your back is to the wall and you must make something happen, or if you're just comfortable, maybe things aren't so bad, but maybe you're driven to experiencing so much more of the capability you have. Either way, you absolutely know you must get there. You'll find the way, right? You'll either find the way or you'll create the way. So that's potential. Number 2 is action. Here it's about how much or how little action you take, and that's based on your belief. Your belief in either yourself, the process, or the outcome, or your disbelief. All right, the third one is results. Whatever results you get is based on how much or little action you take, right? Then the fourth one is belief. Okay, here we go through this behavioral cycle. All right, how much belief in the outcome or the process or that you will achieve what you want determines how much potential you tap. which the more potential you tap into, the more action you'll take. And the more action you take, the more or better results you'll get. And then, of course, with better results, the more belief you'll have. And thus the cycle will continue. Now, the opposite is equally true. If you don't really feel or believe in the goal or outcome or yourself achieving it, how much potential do you think you're really going to unleash? If you don't tap into much of your own potential, how much decisive action do you think you'll take? And not taking enough action will not really get you much in the way of results, right? Which then, without results, you won't have much belief in what you're doing. Now, let me just quickly say something about beliefs here. And I tend to harp on the subject of beliefs, and here's why. This is vitally important. Our beliefs, our automatic and pre-programmed belief habits, are like the captain of the ship. They're like the commanders of our mind. So when one undoubtedly believes something to be true, it essentially delivers the command or an instruction to represent what one can or cannot do. So in NLP, there's what's called our internal representations. And you can think of your internal representations as the drivers of how you perceive things to be. Thus, how you operate based on those filters of what's true or not, or possible or not possible. There's also a saying we have: the map is not the territory. Meaning the map is only a representation of any person or event based on your internal filters, and those filters being your beliefs, your experiences, biases, and judgments, social programming. So, as to the power of your beliefs, just let me throw a quote out here to you, and it is a major one, and you most likely have heard it before. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Now, certainty is also a basic human need. Whether it's with your relationships or your job or career or whatever, you can't perform optimally without certainty. Okay, so the question now is, how do I have that certainty so I can flow through that cycle? One way is to develop what I mentioned a moment ago, and I trust you were paying attention and even taking some notes, and that is to create a little ritual for yourself. Set aside just so many minutes, say even just 5 minutes, where you sit with no distractions and you close your eyes and live in the outcome. Again, I said outcome, in your mind's eye, just like I did when I was developing my physique. So do this in the morning, and I'd also suggest at night as you're wrapping up your day. But here's the key. You must live in your desired outcome with intention and all of your senses. Okay, let me repeat that. You must live in your desired outcome with intention and all of your senses. Make it sensory specific. So see yourself in that mental movie from outside yourself. And why do you do that? Well, because your subconscious mind has to see you in this imagery. Also, if there's anything to hear it. Feel any emotions or feelings you'd have as you're living in the outcome that you want to experience. That's making it sensory specific. Does all this make sense? So, while in this mental movie that this new you is the star of, you are not just practicing whatever it is, you're seeing yourself in perfect practice, right? For example, with my training and background in NLP, there are a lot of methods and techniques that I employ to use the language of the mind and body to create positive change and to assist people with tapping into excellence and succeeding with their goals and their aspirations. So I set about taking certain techniques, and in my mind, I'm running them over and over again. In my mind movie, I'm with a client and I'm taking them through a technique, but I'm not just doing it. I'm seeing myself from outside myself, and I'm seeing and hearing myself being in total rapport with the client. I'm hearing myself verbally, taking them effectively through the visualization. And I feel ecstatic when they come out of it. And I see their physiology, meaning their posture, completely change. And I'm overjoyed when they experience that breakthrough or that distinction that made the difference for them. And I run that so-called perfect practice over and over again. And you must do the following. I have a motto, and I've said it in my post and in my books, and that is, you must do this with full attention and intention. Okay, so in other words, you can't half-ass anything. So from now on and going forward, you have a new motto, right? What is that now? Say it out loud with me here. Here we go. Attention and intention. So here's a question. What else are you doing by running this mental movie? What you are doing is giving yourself the gift of seeing the result in advance. I'll say that again. You are seeing the result, the outcome, in advance. And that is one of the keys to success. And by the way, if you really want to know one particular distinction about how successful people reach their goals, this would be one of them. You are giving your subconscious mind the target to shoot for. And when you do it right, as I just mentioned, your subconscious mind is going to work on your behalf as opposed to against you, and producing the neural, chemical, and biophysical activity to affect the nervous system. And that, by the way, is how you're getting into an energetic resonance with what you want. And what does that do? You are integrating with another source, a source that you cannot physically see in front of your own face, but a source that we are all a part of, from which you came and from which you never left, and that aids you on your journey to your desires. So you aren't working solely by your own physical and ego-based way. In other words, you're no longer having to push and grind and claw and scratch your way to things. What happens is what you want is coming to you, and you are going towards it. And that manifests in the form of people, places, and events. And what an empowering concept that is, huh? So now, as you transform your fear, you turn the conspiracies into opportunity, and you make a daily ritual to gain certainty, what's the next step? Well, you've begun a new path of being who you need to be, so you now can do what you need to do and make real strides to your desired outcomes. So that brings us to the physical or outer game, the third challenge. All right. If you're what's called an internally referenced person, great. The past two challenges or areas hopefully resonated with you, and I'm sure you were able to take away some real value. If you're more of an externally referenced person, this third area is just for you. You'll be glad you stayed here so far. Let's tackle the third biggest challenge people have on their path, and that's lack of effective productivity strategies. And again, we're going to think of this as the fog of overwhelm. By the way, most of this is not brand new and totally unique stuff from me. What I teach and work with my clients on is a result of long research and reading, studying, and trying methods to see what works. I wanted methods and strategies that are not only relatively easy to set up and implement, but easily understood or learned. So, I kept one overriding element in the mix here, because if I didn't, the specific methods I wanted for myself as well as my clients would not have any lasting effect. After what we've discussed so far here, what do you think that all-encompassing element is? It's the what? The mind. In other words, your beliefs and your agreements with time. The fact you've gotten so set in seeing only one way in how your day has to go. The myths you've absorbed and read about and heard of, and that's dictated by society, and most likely by your spending any amount of time in the corporate world. Now, let's just for a moment think of things in this way. There are 1,000,001 things on your plate, whether for your business or even at home, from wading through all your endless emails, responding to them, maybe making the phone calls. Then there's actually delivering whatever your service is. You have to make time for some marketing, like maybe writing some blog posts. Maybe you do videos. There's creating ads, monitoring all the social media, and on and on. Maybe there are meetings and dealing with staff. Times where you're the visionary of your business and being the creative one and directing its path. But there are also times you put on the boss or even admin hat. So what do most people do? What's the one major tool people use to make sure they don't miss anything during their day's agenda? The checklist, right? For now, I want you to throw away the checklist. And you're most likely saying, but Greg, what the hell? I need my checklist. I'll get lost without it. And I just know I'll miss something because, there are like 50,000 things on it to do every day. All right. So remember I said at the beginning of this class or webinar that we must begin thinking and operating in a different manner than what's been traditionally taught. And also remember, even at this moment, you agreed to reaching in and finding that new rock star within yourself. You're committed to tearing down the walls of mediocrity and just inching along. Okay, so for this conversation, I want to dispel one popular and widespread myth right now. Question: what is a trait, a supposed skill or ability that is touted in any job? What's one ability that most people will put on their resumes and espouse in interviews because they believe it's what the company will be expecting to see? It's also a supposed skill that some people have actually convinced themselves that they're great at. That one particular myth is called what? Multitasking. You betcha. Multitasking actually originated with the concept of multiple commands or tasks being alternately performed at a rapid speed, but shared by one source, the computer. However, the term multitasking conveniently and I'll say misleadingly became interpreted to mean multiple tasks being performed simultaneously by, again, one source, but this time that one source being a human. And let me just say that, man, whoever got the term multitasking started and ingrained in the corporate psyche did so ingeniously. Ingeniously for the company, that is. Now, I could go on and on regarding this myth, but let me give you another great distinction here. And really get this. It's not that there is too little time for everything we think we need to do. It's that we've been taught or come to believe that we need to do too many things in the time we have. So the whole concept of multitasking comes down to juggling. We end up juggling how many things, and they don't happen simultaneously. Just as an illustration, the brain will work in, we'll think of as channels. So while we're able to process different things like, say, walking and chewing gum at the same time, the signals are traveling in different channels. So there's a catch. The conscious mind is not focused on both activities. One activity is operating in the foreground, and the other is happening in the background. When it comes to two or more important activities being done at once, the mind is simply dividing our focus. And what's more is that the results or the outcomes are gravely degraded. In other words, the quality of the result becomes diminished. Here's just a couple of crucial things that we now know. We only have so much conscious brain activity happening at one time, so one can tout they're such a good multitasker, but guaranteed, they ultimately lose in time and how effective they are. Number two, as one relays between one task and another, no matter how fast they think they are, they lose time in the fact that the brain reorients itself to the other task. And ultimately, that adds up. I remember reading that researchers had estimated that people eat up like 28% of their average workday to the ineffectiveness of multitasking. That's big. And just to add to the heart of the matter, here's a couple more things. In an article published in Fast Company magazine, or their website to be more accurate, Vivian Jiang, and I hope I pronounced that right, writes that, quote, a study at the University of London found that subjects who multitasked experienced drops in their IQ comparable to someone who missed a night of sleep. Even if multitaskers feel like they're getting more done, they're working at a much lower cognitive level and costing companies billions of dollars in lost productivity. Okay, and here's another one. In apa.org/research, that's American Psychological Association site, in experiments published in 2001, Rubenstein, Evans, and Meyer, all PhDs, conducted experiments in which young adults switched between different tasks. Quote, in part, as tasks got more complex, participants lost more time. As a result, people took significantly longer to switch between more complex tasks. Multitasking may seem efficient on the surface, but may actually take more time in the end and involve more error. Meyer has said that even brief mental blocks created by shifting between tasks can cost as much as 40% of someone's productive time. 40% of productive time, that's huge. Okay, so before I continue on my rant and tangent on this whole multitasking BS, let's get into what I think is a super effective and all-encompassing concept to getting the real important things done and that propel you to reaching your end result. I want you to ask a crucial question as you set up your schedule or agenda. Here it is. What is the one thing I can do that makes everything else either easier or even unnecessary? All right, what is the one thing I can do that makes everything else either easier or unnecessary? This concept or principle can create more time while at the same time ensures you get done with the things having the most impact on your journey to your ultimate outcomes. It's so liberating and freeing. It can really help relieve the stress, the gripping sense of overwhelm. It relieves all the minutia of little things that, end up just being busy work and distractions that really get you nowhere. So for the time we have together here, I'll explain just a bit on this concept that you can use immediately. What you'll get in the habit of doing from here on is asking that crucial question, and then you base your action item according to that. As an example, let's say you have an intention to provide a service or product and you want to build your own business. Okay, so what is the one thing you can do right now for the next week or so? You can take the next week and focus on research. So the main action item to do is to research who your target market actually is. You take time to see what their biggest challenge is, their demographics, anything you can find out so that you know what to provide them and so you can speak their language. So let's say the next main item that furthers your momentum is getting more knowledge for yourself. So often people will sabotage themselves by saying things like, I don't know enough yet. Who'd listen to me? I'm not an expert yet. I have to wait 4 years to go to a college because I don't have umpteen letters beside my name. I'm not a 30-year veteran who's helped 50 million people around the globe yet. Okay, so your one thing is getting more knowledge. You seek out who the experts are to learn from. And if you can't reach them personally, then you learn from them via their books, their videos, audios. Invest in a couple training programs if need be. Anything you can do to further your knowledge and skills. And if it's something you've already had a passion for, most likely you're already well ahead of the game. Don't you think that in terms of your target audience, who desperately wants and needs your knowledge and expertise, goods or services, that to them, you're already more of an expert than you think you are? Now, if you're writing a book, what's the one thing you can do? Well, maybe one day it's taking the data and research and getting it all sorted out, extrapolated, and ready to be used. Another day it's taking all of that and laying down your outlines for each chapter. You get the idea. So you take that checklist of yours and you chunk it all down to maybe the few things of seeming importance. Then you go further and determine the one thing to focus on. And it's the one thing having the what? The most impact on your ultimate outcome. As to the other smaller things, for lack of a better term, I show my clients a method that incorporates a way to handle those and to make sure they don't fall through the cracks. So that's an effective way to stay on top of your time and avoid just going through the motions. Now, let's take things a bit further, to another realm for just a sec here, okay? And this isn't discussed too often or actively taught. Let's kind of blend these two worlds, your inner game and your outer game together, shall we? That's a novel concept, isn't it? I want you to form the habit of becoming more outcome-oriented versus process-oriented. I'll say that again. Become more outcome-oriented versus process-oriented. This also has to do with, getting down to actually doing your action item and following through. Now, here's where I'm going with this crucial concept. Most of the time, people won't start whatever they have to do simply because they chunk up the process way too much. That's a technical term, by the way. What I mean is, for example, let's take my own experience from earlier where I talked about my gym days and my fitness goals. So a person will build up such a minutia of details in their mind until it gets to a point where they won't even get started. It becomes way too much. Like they'd first have to start learning what they're doing so they don't injure themselves, right? Then they'd have to find a fitness club to go where they wouldn't feel too intimidated. Then they'd have to go out and buy some gym clothes, which takes some money. Then they'd have to think of what time in their busy day to actually go to the gym. Oh, then there's actually making sure I'm in peak state for my workout to be productive. Oh, and then there's a nutrition game. I mean, my gosh, I can't just eat whatever I want. I actually have to learn how to put my meals together and all the cooking and what foods to combine. Oh, and on what days based on my workouts, right? Oh, and then there's dealing with the delayed onset pain the following day where I'm struggling to get up the steps, my legs give out under me, I trip, land on my head, start rolling back down the steps, and I look like an idiot. And oh my gosh, so-and-so has an updated article saying that what we thought before was it is now wrong, and here's the better way. So now I have to learn this new thing. Oh my God. And so on and so on and so on. You see how getting trapped of envisioning the whole quagmire of the process can stop, or at the very least hinder one from taking action? So what you're going to do is form the habit of keeping your desired outcome in mind. Your focus is now on your desired result and what that looks like, not the process, and how you feel in that desired result. In other words, it's the popular phrase we've all heard, keep your eye on the ball, right? Or your eye on the prize. So that takes care of the third huge challenge people have of lack of productivity. And we've covered, quite a lot, right? Just with these three crucial areas. So, man, honestly, I could spend days and weeks teaching and showing you how you really can succeed in your endeavors and how you can get out of your own way, so to speak, easily and painlessly, how you can be who you need to be to do what you need or want to do. But while we obviously only have this brief time together here, believe me, we've only just touched the tip of the iceberg. There is infinitely more for you to discover and implement than what we've been able to cover here. So in order to continue on and fully engage in all there is for me to teach, I wanted to invite you to my consulting program that I mentioned earlier. And it's called Belief, Ability, and Outcome Mastery Blueprint Coaching. I'm going to take just a moment and break it down for you so you know what all there is to take to your goals. Now, why I call it that, starting with belief ability, is because, as we discovered earlier, the ability to believe in yourself and in what you're doing and belief in the process of what you're doing determines so much of the path you take. And just by the fact that you're here with me on this webinar tells me you're one who wants to do more with your life. I know you want to be more and do more. You want to pull out that new star from within you. The second half, outcome mastery, is about winning the outer game and discovering and working with some of the most effective methods for your productivity and surging ahead exponentially on your journey. The blueprint is that I have taken 5 crucial stages and created that bridge to take you from where you are now to where you want to get to. And we've touched on 3 of them here, but you have 2 more stages or areas with my Mastery Blueprint coaching. So let me show you briefly. We've touched on what is called the winning mindset transference. That's where we tackle some of your core limitations and discover their root causes or triggers. We set about transforming out of those blocks and challenges so you can move ahead. I'll take you through some of the most effective methods that aren't just, what amounts to be Band-Aids. So we don't learn how to just cope with the limitations that hold you back. We don't just learn how to manage the emotional challenges and limiting habits. What we do is cut right to the core of them. We cut right to the subconscious mind where all the magic or horror happens. Essentially, we work with and utilize the language of the mind and body to turn things around and create an unstoppable force within you. You'll discover powerful principles and distinctions to implement to make complete turnarounds. Now, this isn't just, surface advice you might get from people who only give their own beliefs and biases and their view of the world. Along the way, we'll be engaging in powerful, time-tested and proven methods and strategies from the fields of NLP and neuroscience. We'll be utilizing what we know from studies of linguistics, how the mind works, how to utilize the power of the subconscious mind, and actual scientific principles. And you'll be breaking down old habits of inner dialogue and thoughts and building new empowering patterns and habits. Okay, step 2, ultimate outcome foundation. So here we tackle the obstacle of lack of clarity and certainty. We work together to get crystal clear on your end result, and we establish the ultimate outcome to shoot for. If you already have some idea or groundwork with a venture but are having some trouble with bringing things more to light, we'll flesh out more details with your goods or services. In the same process, I work with you to develop your brand statement. We'll work on how to effectively communicate online and offline your value, your services, and how and why you are the solution to your target market. Because marketing and selling yourself is so important to thriving, whether in personal life or in business. Effective communication is a skill you simply cannot afford to overlook. The third step, recalibrating your clock. We'll go to much greater depths than earlier, and let me emphasize that you'll discover and implement methods and strategies that are used by some of the most successful business leaders and high achievers. We'll establish a clear framework for you to operate with. No vagueness, nothing left up in the air, no nonsense busy work, and what becomes just distractions. You'll learn to establish the action having the most impact, as well as merge that with a weekly planning system to make sure nothing gets forgotten. Now, I've spent considerable time researching, compiling, and working out for myself various methods, and I've come down to what I find are not only easy to implement, but are extremely effective and will enable you to actually create more time while getting the action having the most impact done. Once you have a system that enables you to create more time and that ensures you identify the action that really counts, and at the same time lets you know you still have the smaller things covered, you feel this sense of relief wash over you, this liberation, because you've laid everything down and gotten it all out of the head. You're more clear and able to be so much more focused every day. The fourth step is know thyself, or capitalizing your strengths. This is where we do what most people don't do. The problem is that they're not aligned with using their natural abilities and skills. This is partly, but in no small way, why people seem to flounder and inch along with their efforts. They don't identify and engage in their natural strengths, or maybe even further hone them to a razor's edge. So once you identify those attributes and qualities, traits, skills, whether they're mental, emotional, or physical, you start to propel yourself so much further. This also can be a vital ingredient to the recipe of identifying your purpose. Let me just quickly illustrate a vital concept with this quote from Peter Drucker. And Peter Drucker was an influential educator, author, and consultant on the subject of management, not only in the context of business, but self-management. All right, here we go. One should waste as little effort as possible on improving areas of low competence. It takes far more energy and work to improve from incompetence to mediocrity than it takes to improve from first-rate performance to excellence. Need I say more? So lastly, the fifth step is upgrading your skills. This is where so many people say they want to do something but then sabotage themselves with things like they don't know enough, they're not prepared with that, they don't have the know-how or skills yet, and on and on. Now, we all know the importance of growth, right? In fact, forward movement and growth and accomplishment in life, from personal elements within yourself or relationships to your station in life, your financial growth, you name it. Growth and forward momentum is an incontrovertible human need. So here we come to where you're lacking in anything that you need to further your path to your desires and goals. We'll identify if there's another level of knowledge or skill or ability to acquire so you can be more prepared and ready to tackle what you need and want to do. And I urge you to not get caught up in another myth. You don't have to wait another 4 to 6 years to go to some university to get a bunch of letters beside your name. That isn't required to be of value to others or provide goods or services that meets the needs of a market. Don't even get me started. I could go on and on about that whole thing. So, what topics do you need to master? What element do you finally need to get a hold on? Say maybe marketing, or putting together a business plan, or some level of managing teams or systems. What do you need to learn with maybe health and fitness, or relationships, or whatever it is within your trade or industry? And here's a big one: public speaking. That could be as little as doing a presentation for your department at your job or existing business, to speaking at community groups, to doing a live speaking event in front of a big audience. And actually, I help prepare clients for that. I work with you with use of voice, presence, rapport, and how to capture your audience's attention. And there are specific techniques I take you through to actually do the speaking engagement with confidence and in peak performance. So those are the 5 core steps in the Mastery Blueprint program. Now, you also get something else, and this is not very common at all. In fact, this is rather unique. Another element I've added sets my coaching apart from most others. Remember, I told you earlier I wanted a way to enhance my coaching and to have so much more impact. So, in addition to the one-on-one time with me, you'll also get extended elements of done-for-you PDFs, lists, templates, and downloadable MP3 recordings, recorded and produced by me. Now, these added invaluable elements that you'll engage in between our coaching calls not only give you added knowledge and tools that aid you in your success, but also maximizes our time together, because the things you'll need to lay down or establish, some homework, if you will already be done. And our calls can then be value-packed to the fullest during our time. Not only did I create a systemized coaching platform, but also created these extra elements to be able to give more of my experience, my knowledge, and skills, so that you can really bridge the gap between who and where you are currently and the new you that you'll be bringing out to the world. Some are created as a standard for the program, and some can also be tailored to specifically what we're working on. And you'll also get unlimited email support. Now, I want to get to what I'm sure you're asking right about now. What's the investment for the Mastery Blueprint coaching program, right? Okay, well, first let me tell you what it normally is. For us to work together in the Mastery Blueprint coaching, it's typically $1,200 per month, and I have a 6-month minimum. And why do I do that? To be perfectly honest, it simply enables an initial and reasonable time frame for clients to see real strides towards their goals, and I mean their ultimate goals and life vision. Now, ultimately, more success is achieved by clients who go for 12 months at least and beyond. With that kind of time frame, one really begins to have real momentum and see real strides in their endeavors. And that's why, normally most consultants or coaches do 1-year minimums with clients. So how I do it is, if you want to go for a year, great. And I haven't even mentioned discounts to make it easier yet. But let's say you choose to go 6 months, even just to start. That would normally be $7,200 total. But what I do is, when clients pay for the full 6 months up front, I give them an action taker's discount of 10%. So when you invest in the 6 months up front, you pay just $6,480. Now, some clients have invested in the program on a monthly basis, but most realize the savings. And that savings can be used in your venture or your own learning, as we talked about a moment ago, or it could go towards some outsourcing or to ads, etc. Now, while I haven't done extensive study of most coaching fees, I can tell you that a lot of other life coaches and business consultants charge a heck of a lot more than that to work with them, especially month to month. And not only that, but that's not a lot when you consider having access to specialized knowledge, guidance, actionable and effective methods and techniques to transform limitations, as well as success principles and distinctions learned and used by high achievers and ultra successful entrepreneurs. Now, when you invest for 12 months up front, I just keep it simple. I give 3 months worth of coaching free. So where it would be $14,400, it actually is only an investment of $10,800 for the year. That's well over $3,000 you would be saving, and with 3 months of coaching free. Just think of what you could put that extra $3,000 towards, say your own learning and growth or back to your business endeavors. But because you spent your valuable time here with me and committed yourself to learning and discovering important lessons, methods, and distinctions here, I want to do something that might make things a little bit easier for you. Where I normally have a 6-month minimum deal, I'm offering right now 3 months of belief, ability, and outcome mastery blueprint coaching. Now, that will include 3 of the 5 areas that make up the program. So we'll go into the winning mindset transference. We'll go into the ultimate outcome foundation. We'll go into recalibrating your clock. And I'll also include the extended elements of the done-for-you templates, checklists, and the audio MP3s. Now, the investment for these vital areas would be $3,600, but additionally, I'm going to take off 10% if you pay for 3 months up front, making it only $3,240. Or you can still pay monthly of the $1,200 for 3 months, month to month. So for 3 months of the Mastery Blueprint coaching with the extended elements, you're investing just over $3,000. However, what's more important to realize is the value in terms of what it would mean to you to finally break through the anxiety, the overwhelm, the fear or uncertainties, procrastination, to actually experience ways to create exponential momentum and start accomplishing your goals. And I would bet that what it means to you, the value of this, is significantly more than that dollar investment. Now, you can either go all in with the 6-month or even 12-month coaching, or here's a way to get in for 3 months, should you need, and it being a bit easier financially. Overall, I want to emphasize something. There's another critical factor for you to realize here, and that is with most other coaching or consulting you see out there, they're geared mostly to one game or the other, meaning your inner game. Unfortunately, most people call that the soft stuff, or the outer game of the physical doing stuff. But when we work together, you have an advantage most people don't have. You have the advantage of exponentially surging ahead by addressing both halves of the equation. So, no more living with mediocrity and the frustration of not making real strides to what you want to experience. No more living with the pain of limiting habits and past experiences that have kept you from taking action. Okay, so here's the deal though, and I have to do this, otherwise it can get a bit saturated and I can only work with so many clients at a time. So the 3-month version will be available for a limited amount of time. So I'm going to keep the 3-month version open for 3 days from now. Now that's just to register. You're not committing any money or anything yet. And I'll give the details on registering in just a sec. Lastly, I know you're most likely saying, I have questions. I still have some doubts. I'm not totally certain about all this. What's the process to get started? Okay, well, while I want to fulfill my mission and help as many people as I can with my one-on-one coaching, like I mentioned before, still, I've learned from experience that I can't work with just everyone and anyone. So I always need to make sure it's a great fit for both of us. On one hand, some people just want to take a peek into things, but they're not genuinely committed to changing their lives. And as a result, I can coach them and give them the utmost of myself, of my skills and knowledge. But for their part, they don't fully engage in it, nor do they really have any intention on reaching any desires. And it ends up being a no-win for both sides. On the other hand, if you are truly committed to yourself and your ultimate outcomes, there's a way you can know you've made the right decision to engage further in my extensive coaching and teaching and feel confident with it. So the next step is to register for a free Breaking Through Barriers strategy call. Just fill out a short questionnaire, and upon review, to ensure respecting both our time, we'll schedule a time for an informal meet. And it doesn't matter where you are because I normally do my coaching calls either on Skype video or on the phone. Coaching can even be done by email if need be. So our first strategy call can be either on Skype video or by phone. Now, during our informal visit, you can tell me what your biggest challenge is, what your goals are, where you want to get to. We'll talk about certain things we can do and cover and answer questions and so forth about your new path. So now you can begin in the Mastery Blueprint program and invest in yourself with full confidence. So to register for your free Breaking Through Barriers call, jump over to the registration page where you'll fill out a short questionnaire. And remember, the 3-month webinar special will only be open for the next 72 hours. I'm sorry, I have to do that, or believe me, it just doesn't work. All right, we're about to wrap things up here, so just let me say, I had such a blast sharing with you everything in this webinar, and I thank you for being here with me. Thank you for letting me share some of my story and how I can be of the utmost value that I can to you. And I just want you to know, like I mentioned at the beginning, that this really, is all about you, that new star that you can be both personally and professionally. I mean, look, there's living with the anger and frustration of limitations. Believe me, I know what that's all about. Then there's breaking free of fear and anxiety. You now have a way and a coach in me at your side to experience surging ahead with crystal clarity, focus, certainty, and confidence. You must jump on the next exit and set yourself on a new path to being who you really can be to do what you want to do. I mean, really, just take a moment and imagine what your life looks like even just a year from now after discovering and engaging in methods and strategies that propel you to reaching your goals and your dreams. Just take a moment with that. What does your life look like upon expanding your horizons and awareness with the knowledge and principles and the distinctions that catapult you, not only in your growth, but your value to others? Now, just ask yourself, are you now ready to solve these limitations and actually reach your ultimate goals? That's an important question. And since you're here on this webinar with me, I sense that deep down you are really ready to finally take that quantum leap and make some real changes in life and right now. So here's a way where you master your psychology, clarify your vision and your ultimate outcomes. you put effective and proven strategies into action, and you upgrade your skills. All right. Thank you so much once again for spending some time here with me. I trust you're ready to just rock it and get off and running. So go ahead and register for the free strategy call. I'm Greg Glander, author and your life and business development coach. I so look forward to speaking with you, and I wish you all the best. So bye for now, and I'll talk to you soon.